Men are paying fortunes to self-proclaimed relationship experts who may not even have credentials, because desperation makes even fake authority look like truth. Today, I'm diving headfirst into the Sadia Khan headline, but she's not the only destructive relationship guru. She's just the latest example of how they continue to pull men in over and over. And if we don't talk about the cycle, it's going to keep happening. I've talked before about how loneliness makes men vulnerable, how bad actors get caught in real time, and how the therapy world often misunderstands and even misrepresents men. This ties all of that together and shows you how to not get played again. In this deep dive, I'll break it all down in 3 parts. Why men fall for it in the first place, how visibility tricks us into thinking that popularity equals value, and how to spot the difference between fake and proof before you waste your trust and your very life. So, when men are desperate, they'll listen to just about anyone who sounds like they've got the right answers. When guys are hurt, lonely, confused about relationships, the moment that someone, especially a confident woman with a nice rack, starts acting as if she has the keys to women's souls, men latch on. Right now, men are living in a relationship economy that is broken to pieces. Marriage rates are in the cellar. Dating apps have turned women into a slot machine. Everywhere you look, cultural rules about masculinity and relationships shift depending on who's holding the microphone or sitting in front of a camera. One day, you're told to be vulnerable. The next, you're chastised for being a pushover. One moment, a woman says that she wants a man who can make decisions. And the next minute, she's telling you what to do with your time and money. So the truth is, a lot of men are drowning in that confusion. And that's when dating turns into desperation. When you no longer know who or what to believe, but you know that what you're doing just quite isn't working. It's like being lost in a desert, crawling toward a mirage. That's why bad actors like Sadia Khan or anyone else who delivers their services with a confident, polished vocabulary appears to be an authority figure. She sounds confident. She looks like she's got her shit together. And desperate and pragmatic men don't want to deal with ambiguity. They want answers. They want someone to tell them directly, this is how stuff works, and this is how you get the result that you want. So those bad actors, their certainty, even if it's shallow or fake, feels and looks like real authority to those desperate men. It's the same reason that conspiracy theories take off in times of crisis. People don't actually want to get evidence by themselves or for themselves. What they want is the comfort of a story that explains what's happening. So when you're looking for help, hearing somebody confidently tell you that they've got the answers is like that desert oasis. This is where the fantasy often trumps reality. Reality tells us that, of course, relationships are complicated, right? They're messy, they're full of contradictions. Meanwhile, a fantasy tells us that women are like this, men are like that, and here's the formula to bring it all together. But ultimately, it's the fantasy of seemingly grounded women like Sadia Khan and others that we'll get to in a moment, who often bring that illusion of control to make the connection between men's fantasy and pragmatation. And for men who feel lost or powerless in their dating life or relationships or after a breakup, that illusion is intoxicating. When men are desperate, they'll overlook the contradictions, the bad logic, or even the outright hypocrisy, because the fantasy feels better than facing the hard truth. You may need to rebuild yourself. You may need to face your own flaws, and even take time to change your approach. But the truth of the matter is that the Khans of the world cannot make those changes for men. They can't help everyone find a date or a relationship. In fact, I don't believe that they can help anyone more than marginally, if at all. Let me add another layer here. Men have been trained to treat women's approval as the final stamp of validation. So when a confident, pretty woman steps in and speaks with authority, it can feel very powerful. Not only is she confident, but she's also giving men exactly what they crave. Female attention packaged as wisdom for hundreds of dollars or pounds per hour. That's why you'll see guys quoting Sadia or other women like her as if they're prophets. But it's not that her insights are groundbreaking. It's that these men want to believe that a beautiful, confident woman has given them the rule book that they've been missing for so many years. As I've said before, way back in one of my earliest videos that very few of you have ever seen, being alone is not a weakness. That's where you build your strength. But too many men fear taking that time to be alone and to rebuild and to fix themselves. They're shamed into believing that loneliness is a curse instead of an opportunity, so they chase anyone who tells them what they want to hear. And it's that fear of shame and solitude that makes men even more vulnerable to women like Sadia Khan. If you're feeling desperate to find a woman, think of this analogy. When you're starving, you don't ask whether the food that's given to you is nutritious. You just grab the first thing that you can shove down your throat, and it doesn't matter if it's junk food, pulled from the bin, and full of empty calories. As long as it fills your belly, you'll take it. That's what desperation does to men's judgment, even in relationships. They stop asking if the advice is healthy, and they just consume it because it feels like it's going to help them and keep them alive. And that's why desperation is often the starting point of this whole cycle. Men don't stumble into these confident, pretty faces by accident. They go looking for answers when they're most vulnerable, which too frequently ends in exploitation. And the more desperate they are, the easier it is for anyone with a microphone to become their guru. But this is just the first step. Desperation might explain why men are listening, but we still need to discuss what men do about it and how to fix it. And that's coming up next. In part 2, let's get into the visibility issue as it relates to the Khan story and relationship gurus in general. Why having their face plastered everywhere makes someone appear to be important, even when it's just curiosity clicks and amplified by the algorithm. The illusion that desperate men fall for is that she's everywhere, so she must be important and she must be good at what she does. And once someone dominates the feed and men's thinking, it starts to feel like they're central to the conversation and even unavoidable. But that's not because they're correct or intelligent. It's because men themselves keep those people in the spotlight. As a psychologist, let me tell you that people are wired to equate repetition with truth, whether it's from relationship gurus, in the classroom, or Jason down the street. The more often we see or hear a message, the more credible it feels to us. So if Sadia Khan's or Francis Amoureux's or Nadia X's face is everywhere in our suggested video feed or on a television show, it tricks our brains into thinking that those people matter. Quite simply, familiarity feels like authority, even when it's just bullshit. That's why people say things like, well, she must be onto something. Look how many people are talking to her and about her. But remember that isn't just evidence of accuracy. It's simply evidence that they're present, that people are talking about them. That's all it is. All too often, the microphone isn't held by the wisest voice. It's in the hands of the loudest or the prettiest one that keeps getting replayed over and over. So listen, this isn't a new phenomenon. History is full of voices who rose to prominence not because of their solid ideas, but because they mastered the art of visibility. Think of, and I know that this is a cliche, but think of snake oil salesmen, traveling preachers, or political crash outs like Howard Dean. Who else remembers Howard Dean and what happened to that guy? Those types of people aren't the best minds. What they are is just the loudest. And they know how to stay in front of people. Similarly, Sadia's story and that of those other female relationship gurus is just another version of that cycle, just expressed in modern clickbait lexicon. For me, the irony is that most of this amplification comes from men who don't even agree with Sadia and with the others. They hate watch them. They stitch them, they argue with them in comments, and every time they do, the algorithm gets another hit of engagement. And that's why these women stay and appear to be everywhere. They're in your face. I mean, I get it. Men think that they're fighting back by criticizing Sadia and these others online. But I contend that what they're doing is simply fueling the very visibility that they complain about. They're creating the monster by constantly feeding it. It's like booing a football player or a baseball player. You think that you're pushing them off the stage, but really what we're doing is giving them the spotlight. We're putting them into headlines. Algorithms are designed to reward outrage, and I'm sure that you know this. Positive comments, negative comments, stitches, duets, it's all fuel. Platforms do not care whether you love her or hate her. What platforms do care about is that you don't look away. And men, whether from desperation or hate watching, play right into that system. And this is why the whole villain role is so profitable online. Outrage is attention, and attention is very literally currency. If men keep playing, then the algorithm will keep printing more Sadias. And the more energy men pour into amplifying her and others, the less energy they spend into building themselves. At this point, the illusion is complete. Men confuse excessive visibility with being authoritative. Again, the perception is that she's everywhere, so she must matter, she must be smart. But really, what she is just a symptom of where men are choosing to focus their attention. It's not her power, it's men's misplaced energy. And this is exactly why I broke down the Successful Women deep dive a couple of weeks ago. It's an attempt to catch bad actors in real time. Just because someone dominates any capacity does not mean that they're legitimate. Sometimes it's not authority. It's just manipulation that's used to remove your money from your wallet. The fact that everyone is talking about Khan or any of these other female relationship masters doesn't mean that they should be talking about them. What it does mean is that the system rewards them for being loud, and men reward her by watching or outright giving them a bucket of cash. And this is where I gotta give men their bitter meds. If men want better outcomes, they have to stop making idols out of the women they claim to despise. Stop hate watching. Stop giving your time, your money, your energy, your focus to these uninformed gurus. And yes, every click puts pennies into their pockets, and it adds up very quickly. Do us all a favor and starve the guru algorithm instead of sponsoring it. With that behind us, let's next discuss calling out the female coaching and therapy agenda, not just online, but in real offices in real time. In part 3, let's dive into the vetting of female relationship coaches and therapists as it connects back to the Khan story. Specifically, how men can stop mistaking women's self-designated authority for evidence of positive outcomes. Listen, it's not enough to stop listening to the social media relationship gurus. We also need to learn how to vet those people. Because as long as we keep handling our trust to a hot chick with a nice rack and an attitude, we'll keep falling for the same gimmick. And Sadia Khan is not the first, and she won't be the last. And that's the problem. It's not just her. It's the way that men choose who to trust. Let's quickly recap. Sadia Khan charged $6,000 for coaching services, and men signed up in droves. They paid that high price tag, and they thought that what it meant was high value. And it worked for her. But how many of those men that gave her cash stopped and paused to ask, does she even have a license? Does she give me the outcomes, or can she give me the outcomes that she says? What's her training? Where did she get her education? What's her track record? These should be the basics of discernment when selecting a coach or a therapist. But Sadia and others, they still get away with it. And why does that happen? It happens because, I believe, as I mentioned in parts 1 and 2, desperation and perceived authority blind men who hand over cash to those types of women. And listen, I can speak to this personally. Several years ago, I was required by a woman that I was with for about a year and a half to attend couples counseling. This woman was, in reality, addicted to therapy. She had been going for 15 years, nearly half of her life. And she was a lifetime client of a specific therapist. This therapist that she wanted me to go to was a licensed marriage and family therapist with a master's degree and probably about 5 years of professional clinical experience. She was about 29 years old. At the time, I was 39 years old, already divorced from an 11-year marriage with 3 young daughters. And as a psychology doctoral student at that time, I wanted to understand this 29-year-old therapist's approach, including her training, where she got her degree, and any biases that she might bring to her therapeutic approach. So I asked her for a copy of her master's thesis. Not because I was trying to embarrass her, but I needed to know what shaped her thinking. And she flat out refused. She questioned me as to why her master's thesis might matter in my therapy, in this couples counseling that I was dragged to. And in that moment, when she refused to give it to me and made me feel bad for asking, it was clear to me that the system was not designed for me to be informed of my own outcomes. I was expected to trust her title and to obey the process that she developed and that she wanted me to follow. That refusal in that moment told me everything that I needed to know. And it's my lesson for you. If somebody resists basic transparency and accountability, then they're not the person you should be trusting with your life or your mental health. But listen, this is not just about my personal story, and it's not about just Sadia Khan and her problem and her debacle. It's not even just about one bad therapist or therapists in general. As I explained in my Gavin Newsom deep dive a couple of weeks ago, therapy is dominated by women. And many are not even trained to understand how men operate. Now, I'm not saying that to mean that every female therapist or coach is bad. But it does mean that the risk to you likely is not worth your livelihood. And if you don't learn to grab your balls and speak up and ask questions, or to even demand evidence of qualifications or outcomes, you are getting yourself set up to be exploited. That said, here's my framework for you in 4 steps. Number 1, get credentials and a track record. Do not just take or accept coach, therapist, or whatever they call themselves at face value. Get proof. Number 2, demand transparency. If someone that you're working with is not willing to tell you how they work, what they believe, or where they were trained, that's a big problem. Number 3, observe how that person responds when you ask questions. Listen, defensiveness is a huge red flag, and it's very observable in that moment. A good coach, a good therapist, a good mentor, a good leader, they will always welcome your questions and be happy to accommodate. And number 4, separate presence from evidence. This goes back to part 2. Social media clicks, flashy branding, big promises, none of those are signs of qualifications. What they are is marketing strategies that are designed to remove your cash from your wallet and leave you in the dust. So the ultimate lesson is that you control who pops up on your feed. You can control the algorithm that's pushed to you. And you absolutely can control your own judgment, whether it's online or working with a therapist who has a PhD and 3 certifications in 15 states. You can also decide who gets your money, your trust, or control of your future and your outcomes. But if you don't vet that service provider, you'll keep falling for the next Sadia, the next confident voice, the next chick with a nice rack who claims to be certain but has nothing solid to offer.